The biggest regulation change in a decade might hand Max Verstappen an even greater advantage over the entire grid. Formula One is fundamentally transforming in 2026, bringing 50% electrical power, active aerodynamics to replace the drag reduction system, and cars that weigh 30 kilograms less than current machinery. What nobody seems to be discussing is how every single one of these changes plays directly into Verstappen's unique skill set, and the experts who have analysed his driving style are already connecting the dots. The wild card in all of this sits in a building in Milton Keynes, where Red Bull is constructing their first homegrown engine from scratch, and the answer to whether it actually works might genuinely shock you. The 2026 Formula One regulations represent nothing short of a complete transformation, and understanding why requires breaking down exactly what the FIA has changed. Power distribution sits at the centre of everything. Current Formula One cars generate roughly 80% of their output from the internal combustion engine, with electrical systems contributing the remaining 20%. That ratio flips to 50-50 in 2026, which means the MGUK, the motor generator unit connected to the rear axle, jumps from 120 kilowatts all the way to 350 kilowatts. A 192% increase in electrical output changes how these cars behave fundamentally. The combustion engine actually loses power in this equation, dropping from around 560 kilowatts to approximately 400 kilowatts. And that is when things get interesting for driver skill. The MGU-H, an expensive and complex piece of technology that recovered energy from exhaust gases, disappears entirely from the regulations. The FIA removed it because the costs had spiraled out of control. The technology lacked any road car relevance, and new manufacturers viewed it as an impossible barrier to entry. Without the MGU-H smoothing out power delivery, drivers faced the task of managing their electrical energy far more carefully throughout each lap. Active aerodynamics adds another layer of complexity on top of the power changes. Traditional DRS no longer exists, and both the front and rear wings physically move during a lap based on driver input. Any driver can switch to what the FIA calls straight mode in designated zones, opening the wings to reduce drag and boost top speed, and this access comes on every lap regardless of track position. The actual DRS replacement carries the name overtake mode, and it works completely differently from anything drivers have used before. Getting within 1 second of the car ahead at the detection point unlocks an extra half a megajoule of energy, along with an extended power profile. Here is the thing that matters most for driver skill: that extra energy can be deployed all at once or spread strategically across the entire lap. Real-time decisions while racing at 200 miles per hour become the norm rather than the exception. Leading cars find their electrical power tapering off after 290 kilometers per hour, reaching zero output at 355 kilometers per hour. Following cars running overtake mode maintain full power until 337 kilometers per hour, which creates a massive advantage for anyone smart enough to exploit it properly. The new cars are 30 kilograms lighter than current machinery, 200 millimeters shorter in wheelbase, and 100 millimeters narrower overall. They generate 15 to 30% less downforce. The FIA stated their goal explicitly when unveiling these regulations, making cars more responsive, more nimble, and harder to drive at the limit, putting greater emphasis back on driver skill. The connection to Max Verstappen starts to make sense when you examine his documented driving characteristics. Jolyon Palmer, providing analysis for Formula One's official channel, described Verstappen's approach as distinctly preferring oversteer rather than understeer. Former teammate Alex Albon gave a more vivid description, calling Verstappen's level of sharp, direct handling eye-wateringly sharp. Albon compared the sensation to cranking mouse sensitivity to maximum in a video game, where the car just darts everywhere across the screen. Most drivers spin when they encounter that level of responsiveness, but Verstappen somehow makes it look smooth. Atze Kirchhoff, his Team Redline sim racing teammate, explained the phenomenon in technical terms. What Verstappen does exceptionally well, according to Kirchhoff, is balance a car that is too pointy for anyone else. Other drivers start sliding when confronted with that instability, and Verstappen manages to extract speed from it. Technical analysis from Grand Prix 247 revealed that Verstappen enters corners a full car length deeper than Lewis Hamilton before initiating his turn, using a late apex technique combined with harder acceleration out of the corner. Aggressive driving of that nature demands exceptional car control, and lighter, more responsive machinery rewards exactly that approach. but the strongest argument connecting Verstappen to 2026 dominance centers on energy management demands. Helmut Marko addressed this directly, emphasizing that Verstappen's skill set would provide a decisive boost under the new regulations because they place very different and complex demands on drivers. Marko put it bluntly, the driver has to be smart and clever about using power from the battery, and one driver exists who can drive fast and think simultaneously. Toto Wolff made a similar observation on the Beyond the Grid podcast, noting that the simulated driver generation would find themselves in a good position for 2026. Wolff specifically named George Russell and Max Verstappen as drivers who work extensively on simulators and genuinely enjoy that virtual environment. His assessment suggested that whoever loves being in that world gains an advantage when the real cars start demanding similar cognitive loads. Adaptability remains Verstappen's calling card through multiple regulation eras. After the 2022 changes brought ground effect back to Formula One, many drivers struggled with porpoising and completely unfamiliar car behavior for months. Verstappen adapted quickly, shifting toward a smoother cornering approach while maintaining high minimum speeds. Driver 61's analysis documented this evolution in real time. The 2026 changes ask him to repeat that adaptation process, and his track record suggests he will manage it faster than most. The variable that introduces genuine uncertainty sits at Red Bull's Milton Keynes campus. For the first time in their existence, Red Bull is building their own power unit from scratch. Red Bull powertrains came into existence in 2021 following Honda's withdrawal announcement, and the team constructed a purpose-built facility housing 6 test benches and approximately 600 employees. Hiring raids on Mercedes brought Ben Hodgkinson, who spent over 20 years at Mercedes high-performance powertrains, along with several other key engineers. Ford entered the partnership in February 2023, contributing battery cell technology, electric motor expertise, and eventually expanding their involvement to include turbocharger development. 174 Grand Prix victories and 10 Constructors' Championships give Ford a historic Formula One legacy, but nearly 20 years have passed since their last involvement in the sport. Recent updates from late December 2025 suggest the project remains on schedule. Mark Rushbrook, Ford's global director of motorsport, confirmed they have reached where they need to be with the engine running at full stress levels on the dyno. Verstappen heard the engine himself, and in his exact words, he called the sound good and crisp. Laurent Mekies, serving as Red Bull's team principal, offered more cautious assessments. Thinking they will match Ferrari or Mercedes right from the start would be silly, according to Mekies, who acknowledged they are starting with a mountain to climb. The competition facing Red Bull's untested power unit looks formidable from every angle. Mercedes enters 2026 having dominated 10 of 12 seasons during the hybrid era, and they will supply 4 teams, including their new customer Alpine. Ferrari has developed their Project 678 engine for over 4 years, pioneering steel alloy cylinder heads that allow temperatures and pressures never before achieved in Formula One. Honda returns through an exclusive works partnership with Aston Martin, bringing championship-winning experience accumulated during their Red Bull years. A brewing controversy adds uncertainty to the competitive picture. Reports suggest Mercedes and Red Bull discovered methods to achieve higher compression ratios through thermal expansion while meeting static regulatory limits. Ferrari, Honda, and Audi responded by jointly sending a letter to the FIA requesting clarification, and permission for that approach could provide a meaningful edge. Verstappen's contract extends through 2028, but his candid statements about the future tie directly to whether these new rules deliver enjoyable racing. Ahead of the 2025 Qatar Grand Prix, he admitted that if the cars are not fun to drive, he does not see himself hanging around. Winning 7 titles holds no interest for him. Walking away from the sport tomorrow would not bother him at all. That tension defines the 2026 story. Regulations are built to reward adaptability, cognitive capacity under pressure, complex system management at racing speeds, and a preference for responsive machinery. An unproven engine could be either Red Bull's greatest achievement or their most expensive mistake. A 4-time world champion is questioning whether he will even enjoy driving these cars. Everything known about Verstappen's abilities suggests these rules should amplify his dominance. Everything known about first-year engine programs suggests Red Bull will struggle with reliability and performance. Something has to give when those realities collide. Major regulation changes have always reshuffled Formula One's competitive order. Mercedes dominated when the hybrid era began in 2014, while Red Bull struggled with Renault's underpowered unit despite winning 4 consecutive championships previously. Red Bull and Verstappen thrived when ground effect returned in 2022, adapting faster than teams that battled porpoising issues for months. Barcelona hosts the first on-track testing in late January 2026, and that session will provide initial answers about where everyone stands. The real answers arrive when the lights go out in Australia. And if Red Bull somehow got this right, delivering a competitive power unit while Verstappen applies his full skill set to these regulations, then 2026 might not feature a championship battle at all.